to share a little bit about the journey that I've been on, but more importantly, the life lessons that I've learned along this journey. My story tonight begins actually on August 13, 2007. My husband and I were just coming back from up north. We were on a little summer vacation with our kids. I have 4 children at the time. My daughters were 9, 7, 5, and my son was 3. And I was a vice president of FedEx at the time in marketing and sales. And my husband was a vice president at a construction company. And we just had this beautiful vacation. And we got back on the Saturday, and it was Sunday night. And we're just having life chats about how grateful we were. And it was just this really profound conversation I had with Patrick. And then we went to sleep that night. And for those of you that are moms, we have bionic hearing, okay? There's nothing that gets past us. So about 1 o'clock in the morning, I wake up to a very loud thump. And it wakes me up. And I'm like, what was that? Click on the light. And my husband was not in the bed. And I thought, okay, well, that's odd. Where is he? So I get up and I walk around, and I find him laying on the floor. So I quickly went over there, and I realized that he was not breathing. So I obviously grabbed the phone and phoned 911, and I started CPR, and I am screaming at the top of my lungs, please don't die on me. Because you see, I've been with him since I was 14 years old, and we were high school sweethearts, so I'd been with him almost half my life. So I'm screaming so loud that I wake up my 5-year-old daughter and my 3-year-old daughter, my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old, who come in, and they're saying, Mommy, what's going on? And so, of course, I went into mommy mode. And I said, there's going to be flashing lights coming. Go look for the flashing lights. So they go and sit. Now, so that's my 7-year-old and my 5-year-old daughter. My 9-year-old daughter and my 3-year-old son slept through all of this, thankfully. The paramedics arrive, and my house just lights everywhere. And they come into the bedroom, and I just remember this big arm of a fireman picking me up and putting me outside, and they shut the doors. So I go downstairs with my 2 little ones, and then the police were there and everything. And they were up there for 45 minutes, the longest 45 minutes of my entire life. And I finally said to the police officer, I said, can I just go to the bottom of the stairs? I just need to know if they have a pulse. That's all I need to know. So she finally let me go to the bottom of the stairs just as this one police officer was coming down. And I just grabbed him and I said, is there a pulse? And he said, yes, we have a pulse. I said, that's all I need to know. So they took him to our local hospital. I grew up in Brantford, Ontario. I'm Canadian. I live in Burlington. I've lived there since I was 5. This is Burlington. And we got to the hospital, and they put him in a drug-induced coma because when you suffer from a lack of oxygen, your brain actually will swell. So they were trying to contain the swelling. And after a week of him being stable, we airlifted him to St. Mike's Hospital here in Toronto. And when he got to St. Mike's, we did a couple days, and then the staff there said, you know what, we're going to try and pull back the drugs and see if we can wake him up. So they pulled him back on the drugs, and there was a flicker of brain activity, and that was it. But there was a flicker. And I had a team of doctors that wanted to meet with me afterwards, and they said, we don't think he's going to have much of a meaningful life, and you better let him go. And I said, is he brain dead? No. I said, well, we're both 38 years old. My kids are 9, 7, 5, and 3. And yes, he has a living will that says, if there's no hope for a meaningful life, do not prolong a life worth living. But I assume when he signed that, he was hoping he'd be 93, not 38. So I just looked at them all and I said, do miracles happen in this hospital? And they said, well, yes, miracles happen every single day. So I said, I need you to hook him up to whatever feeding tube, trach, everything. And they did that, and they sent him back the next day back to Burlington, our local hospital. So talk about a defining moment in your life where you realize, oh my goodness, what has life just thrown at me? And my mother, who is my role model, said the most profound words to me that got me on my journey to find my resilience. And she said this, She said, baby, listen, okay? She said, life is not about what happens to you, okay? It's about what you choose to do with what happens. And although you feel completely paralyzed right now, and although you feel that you've been punched in the gut, and although you feel you can barely breathe, just remember, you have choices, and you can choose how you handle this. And that was a very profound moment for me. So then I went on a journey, and I said, okay, you know what? I can't control what's happened to him right now, but I'm going to focus right now on what I can control. I can control researching all the brain meds I can find to try and wake up his brain. I can focus my inner voice, which is telling me right now, you're not going to survive this. You're not going to get through it. I can control that inner voice. One of my mentors always said this to me: the most important conversation you have in life is with yourself. What are you telling yourself? And I was telling myself, I'm not going to get through this. I'm not going to survive it. So I said, okay, I can control that inner voice, and I'm going to say, I'm going to get through this. I'm going to find a way to find the strength from the darkness, and I'm going to make it my mission. I also learned to control my mind, and this is a very profound moment for me. I learned that for some reason our minds tend to do two things. They tend to live in the past, and particularly for me. So I found I was going through, with Patrick being sick and me trying to be a vice president, I found I was living in the past, remembering when he was healthy. It wasn't doing me any good. So I vowed to myself that I'm only going to live in 24-hour increments. I'm only going to look back for a life lesson, but I have to get my mind to be present in the moment. And if I wasn't worrying about the past, the next thing I was doing was worrying about the future. Well, who's going to walk the girls down the aisle? And I was already giving up before I even tried. So I really had to focus what I could control, which is my mind and my thoughts, and focus on those 24-hour increments that I had in front of me. And one of the things that my mom also said to me, she said, baby, even in the darkest of times, if you look hard enough, you can find a reason to smile. And I learned my reason to smile was gratitude, because you know what? I had to find my silver lining. My silver lining was this: Patrick could have been driving our kids. He could have been driving our kids when he had that heart attack. That's what could have happened. So I started to live this life of 24-hour increments, and I would tell my kids every single night, what are you grateful for from the day? And I would do the same thing to ground me. And I told my kids every single morning, when you wake up, I want you to declare the day to be a great one, because I had to tell myself that. My son turned 5 about a year and a half later, and his bedroom was beside mine, and I hear him put his 2 feet in the ground saying, today's a great day, it's my birthday, and I'm getting a brand new Nintendo. I don't care what works. It worked for us, okay? So during those 2 years, that's what I had to do. I could focus what I could control, which was my thoughts, my mind, and how I carried on. At the end of those 2 years, he was starting to get, he couldn't see, he couldn't speak. I brought him home every Sunday. This became my new normal. Sometimes in life you have to realize your old normal, which is no longer there. You find your new normal in life. This was my new normal. But at the end of those 2 years, I started realizing it wasn't meant to be. His body was becoming very ill because he couldn't move. And I realized at that point in time that I had to honor his wishes of letting him go, because he didn't have any quality of life. Now, the very good news about that, though, is that he wasn't suffering. I always wondered, is he there inside? But he was not. He wasn't suffering. So at the end of the 2 years, the heart attack was August in 2007. And in August of 2009, I made the very difficult decision to let him go. But I still focused on what I talked about being mindful of what I was thinking every single day, making sure that when that inner voice wants to come and rear its ugly head about, you can't carry on with what you want to do, your career, I had to temper it. So I carried on with what I was continuing to do and what I learned to do to find strength from this. And then a year, almost to the day that he passed away, this is now August 2010, I'm coming back from vacation up north with the kids, and my assistant calls me and says, the COO for FedEx for the world is on the phone, wants to speak to you. I'm thinking, this cannot be a good thing. There's that inner voice going, what have I done? What uncovered when I left? What's happening here? And he said this to me. He said, congratulations. I said, well, for what? He said, you are now going to be the first Canadian to ever run FedEx Canada, the first female to ever run FedEx Canada, and you're going to be the first female to ever run a division of FedEx around the world. I went into complete shock. You know what I said to him? Well, aren't you going to interview me? He's offering me the job. Okay, so it was said earlier on about women. We tend to lack confidence, and that confidence gap is real. We tend to lack confidence. It was said earlier on about men will go for that promotion when they're 60% ready, and women, we've got to wait for it's perfect. So here, no man would have said, well, aren't you going to interview me, right? I have to work on that interview. I'm like, did you just say that out loud? Yes, I did. And he's been one of my mentors. And he said, you've got lots of mentors. I would tell you right now, the only reason why I'm standing here is because of my mentors and my sponsors. And he's one of them. But I also would share with him what my other mentors said. He goes, okay, tell me what I've shared to you about why you're standing here, why I'm offering you this job, and you're on the phone right now. He goes, tell me. He goes, what are some of the things I've said to you? I'm like, well, you've always said to me that any interaction with anyone above my pay grade is a mini interview, and to use my time wisely. He goes, that's why you've been interviewing for 18 years, because I started out entry level, bottom of the company. You've been interviewing for 18 years, you've used that time wisely. Because what else have your mentors told me? I go, well, my mentors always told me that the most successful people in life are the ones that write down their goals both personally and professionally. And when life throws them a curveball like I had, I could have chosen to given up on my goal because I'd written down there to be the first Canadian, first female. I could have chosen to just throw that away because my inner voice was saying, you cannot be a widow, raising 4 kids, and still achieve your dream. I had to tell myself to shut up multiple times. And I said, well, you told me to write down my goals and to look at them and to also make sure I took baby steps along the way to get there. What could I figure out what to do tomorrow that I didn't do today to achieve those? And he said, and what else have you learned? And he said, why do you think he goes, there's one point you told me that I really resonated with me that I know will help you in achieving this job as our new president. And I said, oh, that's the white space thing on the calendar. He said, yeah, that's the white space thing on the calendar. And what one of my mentors told me when my husband was still alive but very sick, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? He said, you must carve out white space on your calendar. And I want you to carve out 3 to 5 hours a week at work where you're not on the phone, you're not in a meeting, and I want you to sit and pause and reflect and shut the world off. You have to rest your mind and use that time to focus on your goals, your personal and professional ones. He said, but not only do that at work, I want you to carve out 3 to 5 hours a week where you're doing something where you're not a mom, you're not a worker, you're not a sister, and you're doing stuff for you, okay? So what I started to do is I carve out at least 2 or 3 hours where I go up to my room, quiet, and I tell my children, unless the house is on fire, do not knock on that door. Because we have to create this time where we can rest our minds, both personally and professionally. And I did that those 2 years when Pat was sick, and the year post, and that, I believe, helped me to get the position I'm in. And I will close by saying this. One of the things that I teach my daughters, they're now 20, 18, and 16, I always tell them this: make sure you surround yourself with people and places and things that inspire you. And throughout my career, I would attend conferences like this. I commend you all for giving up a night where you could be with your family or friends to come and be inspired. And on my phone, I have all these inspirational quotes. And whenever I have down days, which we all do, I wake up some mornings, I'm like, I do not want to get out of bed and faint. We all have those down days, as long as they don't outweigh the good. But I will look at those inspirational quotes, and they help me to get my day off to a good start. So I commend you all for coming today. And I hope between all 3 of us ladies tonight, we helped inspire you in some small way. Good night.